10 seconds.
10 seconds. The countdown has begun. All right. Well, welcome everyone to our Wednesday afternoon series. And we'd like to welcome Ashley Lamb from Barrie Condo Corner, who will be talking about condos today. We've got some questions and things for you, Ashley, and I know you're going to share your website. We're really excited. This is going to be awesome.
Well, thank you for having me.
So what made you decide to specialize in condos?
Okay, well, that goes back pretty far. So when I first started out in real estate, I was 21 in the Toronto market, and my way into that market I thought would be best learning buildings and the real estate market through rentals. So I ended up, I was going to either go with sign on with Remax Ultimate, which was literally blocks away from my house, but I was a little bit intimidated by the Midtown area and the agents there and just that price point. So I actually got connected. My mentor there at Remax connected me with the broker of record at Remax Condos Plus, which landed me right down at the waterfront. And I was this brand new agent, 21 years old, working out of Harbor Square, where there was just a bunch of veteran agents that literally threw rentals at me, didn't want to have anything to do with them. Of course, everybody knows you don't make a lot of money with rentals. And I just decided that condos was a good focus for me. It was a younger crowd that I was working with. A lot of the renters ended up turning into buyers, and just I understood the lifestyle. So that's really why I started focusing on condos. It was mainly because of my age and not being intimidated so much. And that's how I started learning the market. When I moved up to Barrie 6 years ago, I was a Toronto agent working in the condo market for a decade down there. 6 years ago, we moved up to Barrie to raise our family, and I realized that there was a bit of a gap in the Barrie market in terms of the condo specialty for agents. And I thought, you know what, why try and learn something new? I may as well stick to my guns and continue having my focus in condos up here. And then that's when I found a Barrie Condo Corner.
That's awesome. What a great story. So you're familiar with both the markets then, Toronto and Barrie, which is awesome.
I am. I don't work down in Toronto anymore. I'm not active down there. I just refer all my business out to my agents, to my colleagues down there now, just because I know what I could state an opinion on a possible purchase and educate on neighborhoods. But because I'm not active down there, I don't feel that I would be serving my buyers or sellers as well as I could, right, with the referral.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So did you want to, what kind of format would you like to take? Would you like me to continue peppering questions at you, or would you like to show your website?
Whatever you want. I'm good with however you want the flow to go here.
Okay, well, why don't we pull up your website, because like I mentioned, I took a look at it. It's just awesome. There's so much information there. So especially for any agents who aren't familiar with condos or haven't done a lot of condo deals, this is a great resource.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I really built my website to really just have it condo focused. And here we go. And so when you go on, you'll be able to see that really there's only condos and condo information. So I know that when I'm looking at my stats on the analytics, I know that these are condo buyers and condo sellers. Really, if there are people that come on for the housing market, I'm sure that they just leave right away. But that's what I want. I'm super focused on my niche. When I'm sitting in seminars and there's some great ideas, some agents just have amazing ideas on how they're building their business. But before I make the decision if it's something that I can implement in my business, I first say to myself, okay, can I condoize that? And even though it might be the most brilliant idea, if I can't condoize it, then I just delete it from my brain, right? So that's how I've built the site. Just gonna scroll down. Oops, sorry about that. Where is my, there we go. Oh, it just keeps hitting other things. My apologies. Let me just go back here. So when you first come on to Barrie Condo Corner, the menu about condominiums. So when you click on about condominiums, it will have the, or hover over, it'll have the drop down. Sorry, I ended up clicking on it. It'll have the drop down. I write a condo market report every month. I've been doing that now for 6 years. My broker record in Toronto, wrote one for the downtown core, and I was very inspired by that. So when I was down there, I would use his and change it up a little bit for my own wording. So when I moved up here, I decided to stick to my guns and continue writing the report, which is actually published in barrietoday.com. I have a column there, and I think that's probably been about 3 years now that they've been publishing it, which is obviously great exposure. But then you go down, you know, what is condo ownership, what the lifestyle is all about, the reserve fund, all of this information I wrote from scratch, obviously, because we don't want to have any plagiarism online. And if you were to copy and paste, then you wouldn't be doing your site any justice for Google hits and so forth. Status certificate, what are common elements? I'm just really laying out what are condominiums and what are they all about, really. And I go into the buildings, and in the buildings I actually have the downtown Barrie condos and the main. So let's go to the main waterfront. If you click on that, it will bring up the terms and conditions. I agree. It will bring up the different condos along the waterfront. And then, for instance, let's hit on Grand Harbor condos. You click on that. And you have a picture and what the building's all about, what the amenities are. If there are any condo listings for sale. So right here, it says that there's 4 properties at that address right now for sale, and it will show them here.
Oh, that's great.
So this is synced with the IDX. So I have that for each condo building in Barrie. So that's what the buildings are all about here. Pre-construction, we don't do too much pre-construction up here, not as much as we did in Toronto. But now that, because Pratt Homes, they don't cooperate with realtors, but now that there's bigger developers coming up to Barrie, I do think that this is going to be more of an opportunity. So I do have, you know, what pre-construction and assignments are all about, what the 10-day cooling off period is, what a phantom mortgage is, just so, you know, down the road, if the Barrie market does go this direction, then the information is here. I built the site just as an information hub. If you want to know anything about condos, well, come to this condo site, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So buyers, sellers here, and buyer tips here. Then you can go into a map search, which is also on the homepage that I will go back to. This listed by Barrie Condo Corner here, that brings you into our blog. So down here, I have the market updates, talking condos, did you know, and then our condo listings if they're sold or for sale. The new condo buildings I also have, these are the ones, the developers that actually cooperate with brokers. So I have that here. Actually, my developer has actually made this here look a lot nicer than the buildings in the resale. So that's something that we're going to be working on as well. Just making the site look a little bit more modern, but at least all the information is there. And you go into the blog here. I'm a big blogger. At the very least, I write my market report every month and I put that up. But even through COVID, I spoke on some panels with the Canadian Condominium Institute, which actually did help me with blogging, because I just pretty much posted what my topic was. So just listed, the market report. So these are just recent ones, just listed. But if you keep scrolling down here, I sometimes will do something separate for Barrie Waterfront, because the condo market in the Barrie Waterfront is very different than the rest of the condo market. So showing process during COVID-19. So I touched on that.
So what are some of the main differences you noticed between the waterfront condos versus the rest of the condo market?
Seasonality. Waterfront condos are more seasonal in their sales. Right now is a perfect time to be selling at the waterfront. Obviously price point. Mm-hmm. And the waterfront condos are bigger buildings. They tend to have the amenities. The buildings that are away from Barrie's waterfront, they don't have all the amenities. Some of them do, but not many.
Yeah, for sure.
So then when I go to the home site here, I've tried to keep it user friendly, just really basic. It's super basic. So of course I have the menu that I just went through. I have buying a condo, selling a condo. You can actually input here what your criteria is if people want that type of search engine. But if they prefer the map search, I have the map search. Once again, all of the dots, those are only condos. I don't have any house. The only time you will see a house on this site is because an agent inputted their listing improperly, because it just syncs right from the IDX. So I do have the easy map search. So if you click on that, then you can, it's like realtor.ca, you can hover over and get more information. Then I have each condo building on the home page, along with my blog along the side with the 4 most recent blog posts. I share the our Facebook page as well. And then just condos for sale. So people can kind of just snoop around. That is it. Super basic. I don't do anything flashy. I think I could modernize it a little bit more, but you know what? I ask people all the time for feedback on my site if I do get a lead from it, and everybody just says how user-friendly it is, how easy it is. It's so easy to follow. You don't have anything flashy and moving, and I have to keep that in mind, because a lot of the age group that I am targeting would be baby boomers. So I want it to be very user-friendly so people stay on the site. And that's it.
That's great. And I think a lot of the information you have about condos in general will come in very handy. I'm not sure if any people watching the call, like how experienced they are in terms of working with clients in the condo market. However, maybe you can speak to some of the main differences between working on a residential offer versus a condo offer.
Well, it's a completely different agreement of purchase and sale.
Yep.
I think the residential is 100 and the condo is 101 form. So important to have the correct form. I can't tell you how many times. Sorry, my daughter's coming out. Chloe, I'm in a meeting right now, love, okay? You're not supposed to be coming outside. Chloe, no, I'm in a meeting right now, love. Okay. Sorry about that. So you want to make sure that you do have the correct form. The funny thing is I can't tell you how many times I've received an offer on a condo listing of mine and it's on the wrong form. And, you know, I start going down going, okay, lot dimension, this isn't right. It's so important to have that right form, because right then I'm going, oh my gosh, this agent just has no idea. And then I'm coaching them, and that's fine. I don't mind helping them. But it just doesn't look professional, right? So the main thing would be choosing the right form.
Yeah, and
before
this,
putting together the offer.
yeah, for sure, because there are certainly major differences. Like, what do you deal with? How do you deal with, for example, parking spaces? Like, do you find there are a lot of exclusive use parking spaces versus owned parking, or is it kind of a combination? What do you find in the Barrie area?
There's more exclusive, I would say, than owned. Yeah, and for those who don't know the difference between exclusive and owned, an owned parking space, you actually have a separate deed, just like a condominium has their own deed. So if you were to sell your condo, you don't actually have to sell the parking space with that condo that you're selling. You can sell it separately if you wish as well. You can rent it out. Exclusive, you have a parking spot that runs with the deed of the condo unit itself. So you can't sell it off. The parking space automatically runs with that property. So if you sell that unit, that property automatically has that exclusive parking spot attached to it. Now, there are some buildings that have an exclusive parking space rules where you might not be able to rent them out. So that's something to, if you are looking to buy a condo with a parking spot that is exclusive, when you review the condominium documentation, if you do buy condo, they have an exclusive parking space, you don't have a car, and your intention is, oh, I can rent that out for extra income, make sure that when you do review the condominium documentation that you in fact can actually rent that space out. If it's owned, doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want with it. You can rent it out. You only have to abide by the rules and regulations in terms of how many vehicles and what you can actually store in that space. So some condo rules, you can only have one motorized vehicle. So if you had a motorbike and a car, you might not be able to park the motorbike at the top of the spot. You have to make sure with property management that that you in fact can do that. So it's not really all cut and dry, but the main difference is that the exclusivity runs with the deed of the unit, and an owned parking space actually has a separate deed.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for clarifying that. And one of the main differences too, when they're using the condo offer, is there's actually a spot in there to put the number of the parking space.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
there is. So on page 1, in the middle of page 1, right in the legal description there, you have an opportunity to put the parking space number and the locker number as well, and if it's owned or exclusive. And then at the bottom of page 2, you also have the opportunity to put it down there again and they ask if it's at a certain cost. So you would want to say that it's at a 0 cost. If there is no locker or parking, a lot of people I have found, and this happened to me last night, they will just leave it blank. Never leave anything blank on an agreement of purchase and sale. If it's for a house or for a condo, just put none. Even with exclusions or inclusions, just always put something, because you never know who might try to add something later and do document tampering. So always good just to over communicate in the agreement of purchase and sale than under communicate.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. And maybe you just want to explain a little bit in terms of the status certificate and like the importance of having a clause in there for it. Like, have you ever had people that decide to not put the clause in for the review of the status certificate?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I have had many. Now on the, if I'm representing a buyer, I always say to put it in. If we're in competition and I know about the building, then I can guide them if they want to take the risk and take it out. I of course coach them through what their risks are, but at least I can say, okay, I've seen it 2 months ago and it went through this lawyer and everything was fine. But in 2 months, also things can change in a condominium. Budgets can change, special assessments can appear. So to me, it's really important to keep that in. Now in the Toronto market, people will remove it all the time. In the Barrie market, I've only seen it removed once or twice. So perfectly normal to have it in there, even if you aren't in competition. But when I'm explaining the condition on the reviewing of the condominium documentation, which people just say condition on status, which is actually more than the reviewing of just the status certificate. But when I'm explaining that to a buyer, I let them know, okay, and you're in a condo, in a house, you would put a home inspection, right? Now, many people will still put a home inspection in a condo. I normally don't. There's really no need unless it's a condo townhouse. So it's really the review of the condominium documentation is kind of the equivalent of a home inspection of a house. You're reviewing
cool.
the financials of the building, and you're seeing if there's any judgments against the corporation, or if the corporation is suing anyone in the building, what the ratio is on owned and rental. What else is there? Obviously going through legal description, making sure that they aren't outstanding nothing's outstanding on their maintenance fees, seeing if there's any special assessments, because that's a big deal. And then going through any of the rules. So if you have a pet, you're going to want to ask your lawyer, can you please dig deeper to see what the pet restrictions are? Because most buildings only allow 1 dog, or you can have 2 pets, but 2 cats, or 1 dog, 1 cat, but not 2 dogs. And of course, there's weight restrictions on pets as well. So, so it's not just reviewing the status certificate, it is reviewing some of the rules and regulations and bylaws that might affect you in your purchase.
Yeah, that's great. So do you have 2 separate clauses then? One for the status and one for the review of the rules? Or is
No,
you just wrap it all into one?
I wrap it all into one. I just list everything that the lawyer would be reviewing. So the status certificate, bylaws, rules, regulations, declaration, and so forth. So, and any attachments, of course, or minutes of the last meeting, I always put in there as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I really like your explanation of it being similar to a home inspection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, people will do a home inspection on a condo. I do on condo townhouses, but with condo apartments, especially if it's just a heat pump or electric heat, the home inspector will literally go in and make sure the plugs are working, make sure the appliances are working, which that's already, you have that already warranted in your agreement of purchase and sale anyway. So there really isn't much for them to do. Now, I do know that some home inspectors will do a cheaper rate for a condo. So it's not like you'd have to pay $500 to go walk through a 1-bedroom condo apartment. So if somebody does feel more comfortable with having a home inspector walk through the condo, make sure you call the home inspector to see if there is a discounted rate, because I know a lot of them do. But if you don't ask, they might gouge you for the whole 500. I don't know.
Yeah, you never know, right? But that's
Yeah.
that's great, because most people working in residential real estate would automatically assume that you should do a home inspection.
Yeah.
Might direct their clients in to do that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
for sure.
you know what, it wouldn't harm the deal, because normally the home inspection is going to be the 5 days and you have the financing for 5 days. So they kind of go hand in hand. You know, I would never stroke it out. It, you know, it doesn't, if I was representing the seller. The other thing is in the reviewing of the condominium documentation, I do see quite a lot that they want that the buyer's agent puts the condition on when they receive the condo docs that they have 7 days to review, which is crazy. You don't
Yeah, that's
need
short.
7 days to
Oh,
review.
okay.
Oh yeah, no, you totally don't.
Okay.
You need 3 days, like no more than 3 days. If you've given the heads up to the lawyer, the only reason why you would even ask for 3 days is to make sure that the lawyer's available. And if the documents do not come complete and you need to reach out to property management to get the completed file, then you need that time. Or if the lawyer or the buyer have any questions for property management concerning the condominium docs, then you know you want to have some time for them to reach out and to connect. But even 3 days is more than enough time, especially if you give the buyer's agent a heads up, or the buyer's lawyer a heads up that, okay, they're using you, or it's on order, we've put it on rush, and between this day and that day next week, we're probably going to be getting them. Then they can just plan accordingly. But it doesn't take very long to review a status certificate.
That's interesting. I've seen quite a few clauses where they have like a 10-day window to get the certificate, give it to the lawyer, and then get back to the sellers.
So the 10 days
Yeah,
is not for the review, it's for the order. So
for the
property
order.
management, yeah. So property management, according to the Condominium Act, property management does have 10 business days to
Got it.
legally get it in your hand after you've ordered and paid. You have to pay. So that's where the 10 days is.
Got it.
Nowadays, you can actually pay double the amount. So a normal status certificate's about 110 bucks. You can pay 220 and you can get it in half the time, which I always do that because it's just sooner you get things done, everyone can kind of move on, especially if you have a shorter closing date, right?
Yeah.
And condos do tend to have shorter closing dates than in the residential freehold market.
Okay.
Yeah, normally they're about 45 to 60 days. The freehold market on average are more 60, even, you know, 70, 90 days. I was going to say something there. But yeah, so property management does have those 10 days. You can get it on a rush, but once you get it in the lawyer's hands, that's when the 3 days.
No, 3 days.
So the
Got
lawyer
it.
doesn't need, So
that amount of time.
in the clause, it would state that upon receipt, and then the next day is day one. So you'd have 3 days after receipt to review.
Yeah, that's good to know. Good information. And how have you found the condo market since COVID? Like, has it bounced back the same way as the residential market, or is it a little bit slower to rebound?
It's a little bit slower. It is. But the condo market always lags the freehold market. It's just how it always has been, and I don't think that will ever change. Now, properties that are priced under 450 or even 400 are flying. So the condo market under 400, because they're the most affordable properties, is hot. Multiple offers, properties going over their list price, because, you know, of course, you can't get a freehold property under 400 in Barrie anymore, right?
No.
Unless it's maybe a vacant piece of land. I don't know. So that price point is flying. If you're over $500,000, you do tend to sit longer, unless you're at the waterfront. So once again, it's a little bit of a different market there, depending on location and price range. But yeah, the condo market has always lagged the freehold market. I'm not sure if COVID has had a huge effect on that. It's not challenging to show properties, like property management. They aren't saying, oh, whoa, you can't show the building because of COVID. Like, property management teams in Barrie have done a fantastic job with teaching their board of directors and supporting their residents on how to keep the building safe during this time. If it's moving in and out rules, or landscapers or third-party companies coming in to do stuff in the buildings, I've found that everybody's very respectful. And of course, there are buildings that provide hand sanitizer when you first come into a lobby, and we just encourage the agents to make sure that they're staying in line with protocol. Really, there could be some people that might not want to live in a building because you're so close to each other because of COVID, but I think people have adapted. If anything, I think we have a lot more people coming up from Toronto because they don't want to be in the city where it's busier and there's more people and possible higher risk there. So I've just noticed that I do have a lot more inquiries from people in Toronto and the GTA.
So with people coming up from Toronto and wanting to move up here, in those lower price condos where multiple offers are happening, how do you make your offer more attractive to the seller while you're still trying to protect the buyer's interests?
Well, there's 4 ways of strengthening your offer. One, the purchase price, of course. 2 would be the deposit amount, or if even the deposit is here within the offer instead of just upon acceptance. And then, of course, you have the number of conditions as well, and the number of conditions and the closing date. Is it the most desirable closing date for that seller? Most of the time the seller does have a closing date in mind. So you really would want to as a buyer, give them that closing date, give them a larger deposit. Obviously, deposits in Barrie are totally different than deposits in Toronto. That was one thing I had to really wrap my head around when I came up here. In Toronto, it's like minimum 5%. That's it. And in Barrie, you're looking at maybe like 1% of that purchase price, or if you're looking in and around 600, even if you bump it up to 10,000, right? Of course, if you have the draft in hand to show them, then that minimizes the risk as well of, okay, we have a firm deal tonight maybe, but are they going to drop off the deposit check, right? So if you do have it here then that will, of course, strengthen your offer. I'll never forget, I was up against 13 offers. Maybe I was the 13th. I was up against 12 offers in Toronto when Liberty Village just became brand new. There was maybe 1 or 2 buildings on Lynn Williams there. And I had a client that loved this 1 bedroom on the sub penthouse floor. And we were up against 12 offers. And the only reason why we actually won the bidding war was because I was the only one that came forward with the deposit check in hand. That was why we won. So these little things are worth it. Now, conditions, like, you know what? It really depends on the seller's risk factor. So I've won in a situation where I've had a lower price and it's a firm offer. But I've also won where it's a higher price with conditions, right? And it just kind of depends on the type of buyer, the type of seller, how it's presented. If you do go in with a higher price, but with some conditions, you really want to talk to the listing agent and communicate how strong your buyer is financially and why those conditions are in there. But they can go either way. And at that point in time, it's in the hands of the seller and what their risk factor is. But of course, conditions, the least the least amount of conditions in an offer means the least risk for the seller, right? So, yeah.
And in terms of eliminating conditions, do you have those conditions in there crossed out and initialed by your buyers so that they understand the risks involved? So if they
Absolutely.
decide not to move forward, rather than simply not putting the condition in.
Yeah, you always put it in, you cross it out. And then there's actually another form, a disclosure form that I will have the buyer initial. I can't remember what form it is, what the number is. But it is a disclosure from that buyer initialing, and it's in web forms, initialing off on what conditions they're either including or waiving. And then there's a list of each condition, and they physically initial off on that, and we go through all the risks if they do decide to remove them.
Yeah, that's
But so
awesome,
I
because you want to protect them.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Yeah, because those are little things you don't necessarily think of.
No.
And from a listing perspective, like if you have a listing and your client has an offer date with, and they're expecting multiple offers, do you ever send out, I've heard of some people sending out emails, like the listing agents, with suggestions, like in terms of the preferred closing date for the seller, certain criteria. So agents have kind of a level playing field as to what to expect. Like if they meet the seller's preferred closing date, that's a plus. Those sorts
Yep.
of things. Have you done that before?
Oh yeah. Anyone that has gone through, and we are holding off, and they want to know if the closing date is preferred, absolutely, I'll let them know. Anything I say to one agent, I'll say to all the other agents as well. You got to keep it fair.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe because we only have about 5 more minutes left, maybe we'll see if any of our audience members here have any questions for you. They can type it in the chat box, or I think we've covered a lot.
I think we have too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or if they just want to unmute. Anybody on the call have any questions specifically that they have for Ashley?
Hi, it's Paul. I just hate, the silence. I just want to say it was great. You did a great job. You covered so much. The only reason I'm silent is because you did, and I love your website. I especially love the mortgage calculator. For myself, whenever I try and find a mortgage calculator, yours is so succinct, and I used it to play with while we were doing the Zoom thing. So, no, it's great. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks. You're welcome.
Awesome. No other questions? There must be somebody with a question. A burning question about condos.
You know what? One thing I will say, if somebody has an opportunity to hold on to a niche and to build your business around a niche, it's fantastic. You know what? I barely sell houses in areas, for to be honest. I'm uber focused on my niche. But when I do go into listing presentations and I'm in competition for a listing, for a condo listing, people take me really seriously because that's all I do. I just focus on condos. A lot of the times when people do end up calling me is only because I focus on condos. So if you are able to build your business around a niche, even though you might think you're not doing your business justice because you're narrowing your market down, I feel that I work with more serious people because of my niche. So, I'm okay with keeping my area focused and everything. And I just find that I just work a lot better, and I'm a lot more focused. I'm not running up to, who knows where. I'm not running up to Wasaga, going down to Bradford, trying to educate myself on this house that's in the middle of nowhere compared to a condo or a suburb house in Barrie. Like, to me, that's just, wow, how can you do that, right? And I know in the city that there are a lot of agents that that just focus on certain neighborhoods, because each neighborhood is its own market, right? So
Yeah.
if you do have the opportunity to build your business around a niche, I would definitely encourage that.
And does that help with lead gen? Does that help you with your lead gen? Like, is it easier for you to get?
Yeah. Well, especially the fact that anyone that is coming onto the website are condo focused, right? So we can dive right into great conversations right away. Yeah.
Ashley, it's Angela Parks. I have a question for you. So
yeah, Angela.
If you have a condo that has a special assessment on it, whether it be a buy or sell, how do you deal with that? Do you get, like, if you're on the buyer side, are you getting the sellers to pay out that special assessment prior to closing?
Yeah, you definitely use it as a negotiation tool.
And what if you're on the seller side?
You try and get the buyer to pay for it.
Okay. Great answer.
But yeah, and then most of the time you kind of split it down the middle. Whenever I'm listing a property that does have a special assessment, I go through that with my sellers and just say, look, you know, we're going to try and not have to pay, but, you know, it depends on the market too, right? Like if it is a buyer's market, then look, seller, let's just pay for it so that you have nothing for the buyer to worry about. But if you're in a seller's market, then of course you have a little bit more of an upper hand.
And what do you do in a case where a special assessment comes in after the closing? So you're representing the buyer, and all of a sudden, like 2 months later, a special assessment comes in.
So you've already closed, or you've only purchased and this is before closing?
It's closed.
That's just part of being condo ownership, really. Now, normally it wouldn't just come out of the blue. Board of directors and property managers work alongside with a financer and an accountant, and it's very well thought through. So it would be very surprising that it wouldn't be mentioned in the condo docs in a 2-month period, because those decisions aren't just made overnight. So even in like minutes of meetings and stuff like that, there would be something about budgeting and some sort of chatter. So it wouldn't really come at a surprise.
And what about 6 months?
It's just part of condo ownership, right?
Yeah.
That's just,
okay.
Yeah. You know what, that's why you do look in when the lawyer is reviewing the condo docs, you do look at, okay, what's the reserve fund? How much is in there? How old is the building? And for the age of the building, is that reserve fund adequate enough, right? So it is important to hire a lawyer that understands condominiums for sure. Now they don't, it is beyond their expertise to really comment on the finances of the building. So you can hire an accountant. Now I do have condo accountants at my fingertips just through my condo networking. So I do end up passing along the name if they do want someone to review those financials, because it is beyond any lawyer's expertise. But that's why, you know, and a lot of the times you can tell, okay, well, have they changed the windows? Has the HVAC changed? Just depending on the age of the building. So there are certain hints and clues that you can get while you're reviewing the condo docs. But if it's 6 months, a year later, unfortunately, that's just condo ownership. Sometimes you end up getting hit with a special assessment. You couldn't have any legal recourse. You can't have any legal recourse at all.
Okay.
To the seller or anything like that. The only time is if they were withholding information, right? Or if property management withheld information, which has never happened in my day.
No, and I've not experienced that either. Yeah, so good to know. Thank you.
Good question. Good question. You're welcome.
That's awesome. So I guess you're probably going to have to head out, aren't you? It's just a 1:48.
Yeah, I should probably.